sentence.
Okay. Do you think America would be safer or less safe if we released all the detainees at Guantanamo Bay?
Senator, I'm trying to figure out how to answer that question.
Okay, so no opinion on whether America would be safer or less safe if we released all the detainees from Guantanamo Bay.
Senator,
Okay.
America would be less safe if we don't have terrorists out running around attacking this country. Absolutely. America would also be more safe in a situation in which all of our constitutional rights are protected. This is the way our scheme works. This is how the Constitution that we all love operates. It's about making sure that the government is doing what it's supposed to do in a time of crisis. As Justice Gorsuch said, the Constitution is not suspended in times of crisis. The government still has to follow the rules. And so criminal defense lawyers make sure that in times of crisis, the government is following the rules.
Okay. Let's turn to the actual cases. How many of these terrorists at Guantanamo Bay did you represent?
When I was a defender, 4 cases were assigned to me in our office.
After you left the public defender's office, did you continue in your representation of any other client you had at the public defender's office?
I didn't continue my representation of any client. I left the federal public defender's office and then picked up Mr. Al-Qahtani through the circumstances that I talked about, and there were no other clients that I represented in that way.
I have to say, that sounds like continuation. You represented him at the public defender's office, and then you represented him in private practice as well. And you're telling us that's the only person you represented at both the public defender's office and in private practice?
Yes.
So you didn't continue to provide any kind of pro bono work for murderers or rapists or anyone else, but you did continue to represent this terrorist at Guantanamo Bay?
When I got to the firm and they told me that the case was there and they recognized that I was at the firm and had previously worked on the case, and by they I mean the partners in the firm, they asked me as a member of the Supreme Court and appellate group of the firm, which is what was my practice, if I would help review and work on some of the briefing that they were submitting on his behalf, given my familiarity with the case.
Were you representing him pro bono at Morrison and Foerster?
The firm takes on pro bono representations, which means that the person isn't paying. And
let's turn to your amicus briefs. You had 2 briefs in Guantanamo cases, one for a think tank, one on behalf of a group of former judges. I think, as anyone who's done amicus work knows, sometimes the client seeks out the lawyer, sometimes the lawyer seeks out the client. For either of those amicus briefs, were you involved in any way in seeking or recruiting those clients or suggesting the idea for an amicus brief in the first place?
No, Senator.
Were both of those briefs done on a pro bono basis?
Yes.
You've done pro bono work for or on behalf of detainees at Guantanamo Bay. Have you ever done pro bono work for the victims of terrorism?
Senator, I'm not aware of any such cases in my law firm.
So we've talked a lot about the people you represent. Let's talk a little bit about the defendants in those cases and how you characterize them. I'll remind you that those were the President, the Secretary of Defense, and active duty Army officers. Senator Graham and Senator Cornyn said that you called them war criminals. You disputed that, and Senator Durbin has repeatedly denied it as well. And I'll concede you didn't use those exact words. You didn't say war criminals. But you did say in multiple court filings that they committed acts that constitute war crimes. I'm sorry, but I got to confess, I don't understand the difference between saying someone is a war criminal and saying they've committed acts that constitute war crimes. So can you explain that difference to me?
Yes, I will. Thank you for the opportunity. So when you file a habeas petition under our law, you can't file it against the United States because of sovereign immunity. The way our law works, you have to file it against individual officers in their official capacity. That's the way in which you're able to file a habeas petition. So whoever is the executive at the time becomes the named party in the brief. And a habeas petition is like a complaint in a civil case. It's making allegations to begin the litigation about the person's detention.
But Judge, official capacity, personal capacity, all that is just a bunch of procedural gobbledygook. These are the people that you said committed acts that constitute war crimes.
With respect, Senator,
I just don't understand the difference between calling someone a war criminal and saying they committed acts that constitute war crimes.
With respect, Senator, they were not sued in their individual capacity. We weren't making allegations about those individuals. And in fact, over the course of the case, the names changed. So later on, the habeas petition became against President Obama because he then became the executive for the purpose of the habeas petition.
I'm well aware the name changed. It probably changed from Bob Gates or from Don Rumsfeld to Bob Gates as well. But they were not the ones in office. They were not the ones who were overseeing the government when you filed these suits and you said they committed acts that constitute war crimes. I don't understand how you expect this committee to believe that there's a difference between saying someone's a war criminal and saying they committed war crimes.
Thank you for the opportunity to explain, Senator. One of the allegations that had been publicly reported with respect to the group of people who were in Guantanamo Bay was an allegation concerning the use of torture. And when you make that allegation, you bring it under laws that themselves constitute crimes of war. That's the way in which the law works. So if you're writing a habeas petition and you say, upon information and belief, Mr. Al-Qahtani was tortured, that allegation is made under a law that says that there was a war crime that occurred as a result of that torture, and you're making that allegation against the United States, but because you can't sue the United States, the actual petition is named in the name of whoever's leading the United States at the time. So later in the course of this, it moved from President Bush, Donald Rumsfeld to President Obama. It's not about the individual. It's about the allegation that that Mr. Al-Qahtani, upon information and belief, had been tortured in the lead up to his detention.
I don't know, Judge. Sounds like a debate about how many terrorists can dance on the head of a pin to me.